Hey guys, bet you didn't expect to see me again this year. If you guys saw my last video, you guys know that we are expecting a baby next year in June. We're super excited, but also a little bit terrified. I do have some ideas for videos that I want to do next year that are baby related. Don't expect this channel to suddenly become all about babies. I still love talking about writing, craft, and books. But when the baby comes, I have no idea if I will be able to have time to do literally anything, let alone film videos. So stick with me until then. Meanwhile, this video, I know I haven't posted in a while, but I started out this year with this 3-part series that I wanted to do on all the books that I've read. I have part 1, I will link it up here, and I'll link part 1 and part 2 down in the comment section. Description section, but you do not need to watch parts 1 and parts 2 to enjoy part 3. It's literally all individual books. However, this video will be special. I am including my favorite reads of the year and my least favorite reads of the year. And boy are there some. So let's get to what books I've read in this fall and winter season, the last 4 months. There were 5 books that I read. Actually, I think I'm doing a shout out for a 6th book as well, and we'll get through those guys, and then we'll find out what my favorites and least favorites were. So the first book of this video, I was gonna say quarter or season, but neither are accurate. This I think was my August read. But it dripped into September. I actually had a shout out in my last video about it, but I hadn't finished it yet, so I didn't feel like I could fully review it. So we are on Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. So this book follows, it's a multi-POV, but it follows predominantly a character named Zeely, who after magic has completely disappeared from the world, it's up to her to bring it back. That's this book in its simplest terms. I overall really did enjoy this book. However, I did give it 3 stars out of 5. So let me get into how I felt and why I felt that way. First off, loved the world building. I loved being submerged into this like West African inspired culture. Made me really feel like I was in Orisha, and I truly adored all of the beauty and passion that was poured into the sacred gods and goddesses throughout the land as well. And I really loved the book's powerful message about the fight against institutional racism and oppression, racial tension, and prejudice in a society. It was a huge theme throughout the book, and it was very powerful, and I really appreciated seeing it in this setting. So I did love a lot of the characters. I felt like they were predominantly well-rounded. I especially loved anytime that Zeely interacted with Rowan, who comes in later in the book, and her brother Zane. They have some really great conversations, really great dialogue, great moments, and I kind of wished there was more of that throughout the whole book, but I did love those moments that were there. So I felt like the adventure was really solid, but I did feel like it was a little formulaic too. I felt like I could tell that Adeyemi was working off of an outline. It just felt systematic, like, okay, now the Chandomble scenes are happening. I don't know if I pronounced that right, I'm sorry. Chandomble scenes are happening, and then they're in the desert, and then they're in the sea caves. And there was like very little transition between the two. In fact, somewhere around the desert, whether it was before the desert or after it, I can't remember which, but there was like no transition. And I was like, okay, well, I guess they're here now. So I felt like, so I've learned to grow wary of books with maps in them, because I feel like authors, like, you can see the path that's laid out for a character, and it'll be like, this town, everything that happens in this town happens here, and I can maybe move it over here if I need to. And there's just, it was a little disjointed, is how I felt about that. Now, despite that, I recognize that this type of story, this formula of a story, this fantasy novel, has been seen and been done thousands of times before, but not often enough with a cast of all Black characters. So I do recognize how important it is to have POCs and have authors of color writing stories that have been done 1,000 times, and white kids are always getting to see themselves in books of this fantasy nature. So how cool is it to finally like have this? I won't say finally, because there have been other books, but like Tomi Adeyemi really packed a punch with this to be able to show this and bring this to people and say that yes, it can be done. It can be done well. It can be done beautifully. And I think that that in itself is very powerful and makes this book really important. So even though the book was organized systematically and wasn't perfect in a lot of ways, I do recognize how important that particular part is. I wanted to talk for a minute about the romance between Inan, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, I apologize, but Inan and Zili. I felt like it was really rushed. All of a sudden, they were ready to be together forever and rule the world together. And then I felt like their love was really undermined by a lot of the choices that both of them ended up making. So it was rushed and then broken and back together. And it was just this like chaotic thing that didn't feel realistic. It didn't feel honest. And I wasn't a huge fan of the romance in the book. There were definitely some other things I didn't like. There was, Inan was given a very particular type of arc that I feel like didn't do everything that it could have done. I won't say what type of arc it is either, because that is also kind of a spoiler, but he had this really cool duty for self mantra that his dad had drilled into him, his father being the king. And he made some realizations like halfway through the book that were like really powerful, and I feel like he forgot about them. And we also forgot about they have this like giant lion that they ride on who gets lost halfway through the book. I don't know where she went. And the battle at the end, it was just such a letdown in my opinion. It felt really rushed. Like she spent all of this time making this gorgeous big book and then rushed the ending. And I hate when authors do that. I feel like it happens way too much, but I can't talk about it without being spoilery. So regardless, if I go too into depth about any of these things, this particular review will be extremely long. This book has been recommended over and over and over again. I have really good friends that love this book that recommended it to me. They said, don't read anything else. This has to be the next one. I think that the tough part is just that I'm coming at this from an author perspective and not just a reader perspective. If I was just reading the book, I probably would have really just enjoyed it. But being an author, I feel like I pick everything apart. So take my opinion with a grain of salt. Read the damn book. Lots of people love this book. It's got like tons of 5-star reviews, 10-star reviews. If that sounds like something that you're interested in, you should do it. So the next book that I read, my September read, was The 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harrow. So this book was not what I expected. I recognized from the book flap there was not a lot of information from the book flap. Something about it felt really literary, but the book flap made it feel really fantastical. And I will say it was a really solid combination of both. It is a gorgeous book filled with magic, hope, and freedom. It wasn't quite what I expected, but I did love it all the same. So it follows two parallel stories. One of an in-between girl who never quite felt like she belonged and was trapped under her caregiver's like strong iron fist that he wanted her to become a model citizen. Meanwhile, she just wanted to be off adventuring with her father, who actually worked for the caregiver. So in the book flap it says that this character finds a strange book that carries the scent of other worlds and tells tales of secrets of strange doors, love, adventure, and danger. And as our character January reads through them, yes, January is a character, by the way. That was a surprise to me. As she reads through this book, the story starts like intermingling with her own world, which was a really, really cool addition. So that is the parallel story. We are actually reading the story that she is reading. which follows this rambunctious girl who ends up meeting a boy that has come through a doorway in a wheat field that just appeared there. But after his doorway is destroyed, she spends the rest of her life searching for him. So our in-between girl, January, she learns what kind of monsters come through these doors, and will have to decide if they should stay open or what doors should stay open. And all the while she is learning about this really cool power that she has as we go. So I don't want to give away too much because I feel like a lot of it, all the things that she learns along the way, like her cool power and how she's connected with the book that she's reading and all of what the doors are and who the caregiver is, are all like spoilers. It's things that she learns in her journey. So I can't talk too much about the cool parts of this book, which explains why the book flap is so vague. But if you're into like a fantasy setting that's written in a beautiful, like lyrical, literary way, I definitely recommend picking up this book. So then we get to October, and I am determined to get through like 4 horror stories that I have, and I got through 2. So, but I tried, man. I tried really hard. The first one was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. So this book is about, it's a teenager who loves like fashion and beautiful dresses and her like fancy, expensive cigarettes and going to parties and everything. And she gets actually it's her father who gets a letter that's very concerning from one of her cousins who recently married someone up in kind of a creepy mansion that is up on the hill that everyone kind of avoids. And the letter's really concerning because it says that the cousin is in danger. So our main character here, I have to look up her name, Noemi. So Noemi is sent to go see what is going on with her. And of course, when she's up there at this creepy mansion, she gets wrapped into everything. So I was a little worried that I wasn't gonna like the character because she is very girly and very fancy and very... However, she was not vapid. She had depth to her. She was like an undeclared major in college because she kept wanting to study everything. She really liked history, and like nature and everything, and I think that that was really cool. It added just enough to the character to make me not completely hate her. Like she wasn't just like this empty-headed thing, which I think was really a nice addition. I don't know if you guys have watched The Good Place, but the entire time I was reading this book, I was imagining Tahani as the main character. Like I couldn't stop thinking about Tahani. So that is who was in this book in my world. So it was a spooky, kind of creepy, gruesome book. It's about a family who has a lot of vile secrets, and you uncovering them as you go in this mansion. I had this constant like get out while you can feeling, even though you couldn't pinpoint why she needed to get out for quite a while through the book. So I'll be honest, I did not love this author's writing at the beginning. I felt like it was maybe overwritten. It just felt like there was a lot of detail. We start with this character's kind of her in her original world where she's at parties and stuff, and it just felt like a lot. So it took me some time to get used to the author's writing style. But once, I think it was in about chapter 3 that it was go time, and I just read super quick through it. So it takes place in this old decrepit house, and there's this family, like old money type of family that has all kinds of devilish secrets, and there are all of these like enticing nightmares that happen every night as well. I did feel like in the beginning the author's, I'm sorry, not the author, Noemi, our main character, Tahani, her motivation wasn't strong enough in the beginning, I don't think. It was like the dad, something about college, if he was going to pay for it or send her to a good one or something. But her motivation wasn't strong enough in the beginning. Once she gets to the house and her motivation becomes more focused it's more obvious, but I kind of feel like the original motivation wasn't a big thing. I feel like it was kind of thrown in there, but once we're in the house, it's fine. I liked the main, especially the main trio of characters, which ironically did not include her cousin, interestingly enough. And I loved their banter, and I loved like their dialogue and them talking to each other. I kind of wanted more from it. I kind of wanted more from the whole book, but I think it was a short, quick read. It was a great Halloween read, great October read, great anytime read, like pick it up whenever if you want a horror book. But it's not like I'm gonna say it's like the best book I've ever read, but it was quick and fast, and the plot worked, everything worked out great. So if, you know, it had some, the gruesome moments, the devilish family, like it was good. It was a good thing. So yeah, pick that up if you want. So the second October read, and sadly the last that I got to for my Halloween reads, I tried, was Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This book is about, it follows Alix, who is a bruja, the most powerful in her generation, but she hates magic, like hates it, does not want to be a bruja anymore. On her death day celebration, she accidentally sends her whole family into another realm. Whoops. So the book is about her going into this realm. It follows Alix, and with the help of a family friend, I'm gonna call him, Nova, they go down into Los Lagos, which is this other realm. It's kind of similar to a netherworld, I'm gonna say, in order to get her family back. So I felt like this book was truly just okay. It was just okay, which was disappointing. I wanted it to be, I think I've had the book for a while, so I built it up to be something great, and I wanted it to be more than what it was. So I loved the cultural influence, I loved the magic and the monsters and the portals into the realm of Los Lagos. It really felt like a land that was like this true tall tale. Like all of the family have gathered up their tall tales, but they're real, like different family members have actually been there, and it kind of painted out the picture of what it was. And it really felt like I was reading a folk tale, which was really cool. However, the book felt predictable. It felt really simply plotted. This is another one that had a map, and I could just like follow the map to where they needed to be, and I wasn't sure if I actually needed to read the book. I was like, okay, they'll go here, 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 and then they're there, and voila, and the book's done. Don't trust maps. I don't trust maps anymore. The scenes felt a little episodic. They felt, what do I want to say, staccato, disjointed. Like it felt like a scene would happen, and then there wouldn't be much of a transition, and then another scene would happen. And once again, it was the map thing where it said like everything that needs to happen at this location happens, and then loose transition, and then they're here, and all this stuff is gonna happen, and then the loose transition, and then that's gonna happen. And it drives me nuts. Clearly, it drives me nuts. It just felt like they picked a point on the map. They actually had a map. They had a physical map that they were also looking at. They picked a point on it, and they went there, and there wasn't a lot that stood in their way. There was a little bit of conflict at each place, but it felt very easy for them to get through everything they needed to get through, in my opinion. I felt like a lot of the pages had a lot of telling, so I never felt fully invested in the character's headspace. We all know how telling versus showing works, right? Probably not to everybody who's watching this video, but it just felt like I was being told what was happening. I didn't get to like feel like I was there in the moment with them. Which weirdly kind of goes along with this folktale feeling that I was getting, because a lot of like oratory tales that people have done throughout the years are literally that. They're telling a tale of what happened. So it did aid to that feeling of it being a tall tale, a folk tale. So in a way, I guess that works out in this particular story's favor, but I wanted to be more invested in the character. So in the end, I love Zoraida Cordova. I love her as an author and a person. I follow her on like Instagram. I've met her in person. I've met her in real life at a writing conference. This book is actually signed like to me. So I love Zoraida Cordova and I plan on reading more of her work. I just don't think this book was for me. Okay, so next up is technically my November read, but it took me 2 months to read this guy. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Okay, so this book is about Coriolanus Snow, who becomes the future President Snow that we all love to hate. He is the antagonist of the Hunger Games series of the first 3 books. So we all know him. I feel like nobody asked for this dude's backstory. Nobody needed an origin story from him. But I was so excited to be back in like the world of Hunger Games that it didn't matter. So this, let me just start with what the book's about. It follows Coriolanus Snow. He's a teenager. He is chosen as a mentor to one of the tributes in the Hunger Games way back when. It's like 50 years prior. It's a prequel to the Hunger Games. And this is one of the very first times they're trying mentoring. And it's a group of students at the Capital's Academy that are mentors for the tributes. And he's landed with a girl who has a lot of charm, a lot of character, very musical, very bright and spirited. And of course he falls for her. But their romance, okay, now I guess I'm getting out of what the book's about, but their romance was very uncomfortable the entire time. I don't want to talk about their romance too much. I don't think I'm going to need to. The truth is, I did not like this book. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I was so disappointed. I think I'm hovering between 1 and 2 stars. It was so bad. Well, let's start with Coriolanus himself. So this kid grew up with money, very well off, and then there was a war that happened. He lost both of his parents, and he's trying to recover from like the trauma that happened during this war. But he's still trying to put on like this posh, oh, don't worry, we still have money attitude, so that nobody realizes that he is just as broke as everybody else. But what it translated to was us just following this privileged, self-serving white kid through the whole book who clearly doesn't care about anyone. I just found him to be mean and snotty and off-putting. And I get it, like he grows into this evil dude, right? He grows into an antagonist. This is the evil character's origin story. And like, it should be like that, right? They should be characters that, you know, aren't good characters. But, so he has this like sharp wit that comes through every now and then. This brilliance that comes through, these evil things that he does that come through, and especially in like the epilogue, you really get to see the person that he grows to be an antagonist. And like, I would have followed that character, but mostly he comes off as highbrow or naive. And the naivete doesn't even read well because of all of the other character traits that he has. Like, it doesn't seem like he should be naive. It just wasn't an evil character that you wanted to follow for a whole story. And there wasn't much sympathy for the character either. It didn't push into this enemy but we care now territory, which sometimes happens in origin stories. And it wasn't like this evil, smart character that we hate but we love. Like, we love to hate the character. It was neither. It was not good. I really kind of think that that's what she was going for too. I think that she was going for this character who grows into his vile self. And it just didn't work well. I feel like I would have rather had seen him be vile throughout the entire time. Erase the naivete, erase all of that, like, and just create a character that we love to hate. Or that we feel sympathy for. I don't know, pick one. But it wasn't working for me. It didn't even feel like Suzanne Collins' writing. I read The Hunger Games. I read a couple of her books in the Underlander series, which is a middle grade novel, mind, but This book felt overwritten, or maybe under-edited. I don't know which, but it felt long unnecessarily. It honestly, there were many times, especially in the beginning, that I thought, is this being written by a ghostwriter that maybe isn't at the same skill level? It felt very boring, very blah, very, like, not plotted well. Something was amiss with the editing. The entire book was written in telling, not showing. So if you don't like to read books that are just told to you, that are like 1,000 pages long, don't read this one. Don't read it. It was just told. The whole story was just told to me. Big, fat paragraphs the whole time. Barely any dialogue. A few times we had some interiority thrown in, like inner character thoughts, but not a lot. Mostly it was just telling me what was happening. It actually felt like Suzanne Collins took the backstory that she wrote for President Snow, bolstered it up into like a novel length, and then published it. So, I get that it says Ballad. I get that it's called the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and it's supposed to feel lengthy and long, and like ballads are like these long, drawn-on things, but it just wasn't executed well. The execution was very poor here. I found the Hunger Games themselves to be very boring. The third act came out of fucking nowhere. Came out of left field. It was just like, everything's over by Act 2 and then we're there. Okay. I did like Dr. Gall. She was this evil kind of malicious character, and I loved her laboratories. I loved Coriolanus Snow going in there and discovering all of the weird experiments that she was doing, but there wasn't enough of it by a long shot to like hold up this novel at all. I just expected so much more out of Suzanne Collins, considering like this massive franchise that she made with Hunger Games. I just thought it would be something that it would definitely was not. So this book was definitely not for me. I'd not recommend it. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't love writing scathing reviews. Like, I don't love talking about books that I didn't like, but good Lord, like, I thought it would be different. Okay, the last book that I've just recently finished, those were all of my fiction books that I read throughout the year, but I wanted to just stop in and do a quick little shout out to Save the Cat, Writes a Novel by Jessica Brody. This is a writing craft book. I just finished it, and I know it's all over Instagram. If you're an author, you've definitely heard about this book, and I won't do a long review because I know there aren't a lot of like people watching this that are authors, but if you're thinking about writing a book, oh my god, read this. It's great. She talks about the 10 genres that every book / story, movie, etc. fits into. The whodunit, the dude with a problem, the golden fleece, the superhero tale. Like, if you can figure out what your book is or what book you want to write is, like if you want to write an institutional tale, it can help you figure out like what might be missing from your story or what elements to put into it to make it really excellent. Of course, everyone reads this book for the beat sheet. It goes over beats for Act 1, 2, and 3, like in Act 1, the opening scene, the theme stated, the setup, etc. And there's like a quick look, and then there's like a really expansive look at what each beat should be. Obviously, a lot of authors have their own types of beat sheets. I've read all kinds of them. The hero's journey is probably the most widely known, and fits into these beats as well. So I've seen a lot of them, but this one was very well handled, very well explained. I was left with absolutely no questions, and it's definitely a game changer. You can definitely go in and figure out in your book what might be missing, what beats you need to, maybe they're in the wrong place, or like maybe you need to bolster them up a little bit. But regardless, that was an amazing book to read. Highly recommend it. Like, very, very highly. 1,000 stars. So check that out if you are a writer, thinking about writing, have written books, need to figure out what's going on with your beats, etc. Okay, so now we have reached the very end of the year. All of my books have been reviewed. These are all of the books that I read throughout the year. Look at them. Look at them. So out of these books, what was the best book that I read and what was the least best book? Well, nobody should be surprised by the least best because that review just happened. But we'll get to that in a second. So the best book that I read, I think honestly, was 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. Loved that book. I thought it was perfectly plotted, edited. There were so many cool things. Just the character going into different bodies as hosts, and then like having to deal with that host's personality and like the clashes and what that host wants and what he wants, and trying to get a murder figured out all throughout all of that was really cool. It was really cool. Even the title, just like if you read, like you would know how cool the title is by the end of the book. Like it's way cooler than you think. So I was really impressed by that book. That's definitely my top. Also loved The Night Circus, Illuminae, This Is How You Lose the Time War. Ugh, gorgeous. And I have to give a shout out to Darker Shade of Magic, of course, The Queen of Ishwab. So the least best book that I read, yes, of course, the scathing review that just happened, Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes. Oh my god, it was not good. I'm so upset that it was not good. But I can't say that it was actually the least best. I had a second review earlier this year that I actually read the book, I think in January, and I couldn't even talk about it until the second video, because it was like, I'd wrap my head around why it was so bad, which was Starflight by Melissa Landers. I really think the book was just not for me. I think it was just not for me. There were so many aspects of it that I just don't like reading about in books that it was that simple, right? It's a subjective thing. It's fine. So maybe Ballad was the worst, or at least best. But obviously, reading books, loving books, hating books is a subjective thing. So if you guys have read any of these books, I will put them here again, and you loved them or hated them or have any opinions whatsoever, please let me know in the comments. I would love to talk about books with you. Next year, do you hear that? My husband's making all sorts of noises. Next year, I'm gonna make a new goal for myself, but with baby coming in June, I have no idea what I will succeed in or fail horribly at. So I plan on like having books that I want to read in the beginning of the year, and the second half of the year, if I get anything read, well, that's the goal, is just to get a chapter in or something. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But to next year, guys, 2020 is done. Thank the Lord. Hopefully next year will be better. All we can do is try to go up from here. So I hope you guys have a great new year. Hope you guys had awesome holidays, and I will see you guys in 2021. See you later.